Hey folks, it's Nate. Thanks for joining me at the art table again today. And we're back taking another look at Yukito Kishiro's Battle Angel Alita. We are in the end game now. All of our major final players have been set up in Volume 6. So Volume 7, 8, and 9 basically just let all the dominoes fall. A quick retcon here, I guess, or correction of my previous statement. I said that the Chief Bigot, yes, really, from the last volume, was the head of the MIB. I got that wrong. Apparently, he's the head of the GIB. I don't remember where I got MIB in, unless I'm thinking of Men in Black. Possibly that's something from the Last Order spin-off series that Kishiro wrote probably 20 years after he did this, maybe even longer. Regardless, I'm not 100% where I got that acronym on, but we actually see it painted on a doorway here, and they use it a few times here. And he's from the GIB. I don't remember what the G is, but they are an investigation bureau, and that's the role in Ty Ferris. And again, these are the people who are managing Alita as a member of the Tuned. And we pretty much pick up our story where we left it off at the end of the previous volume. We saw the chief save Alita and Figure when they were about to die of thirst in the desert. And now we have basically a one-page recap that tells us Figure is not going to be a major part of the story in this volume, or the next volume for that matter, but more on that in a minute. At this point, Figure, he has served his purpose. He has gotten us up to speed with where Alita is in her life now, and he's given us a sense of how she is going to strive to balance her conflicting drives, her desire for order and a social structure, and of course Figure is the beginning of that because he is her romantic interest, and her desire to have freedom to indulge her impulses, her love of action, her love of adrenaline, and her desire to set right the wrongs of the world. And now that we have that, he's not as important to the story. Alita is in this story a bit of a knight errant, especially in this final section of it. And that means she goes out from home and she does things in the wider world, which kind of fits with her role as an agent of Ty Ferris. The fact that she is no longer in Scrap Iron City, she's actually out in the wastes beyond it. She is really growing into a character who does not just involve a small section of the world, but who is wise to the ways of the entire world. And Figure, while was also on that kind of a journey, he pretty much reaches the end of it when he has his fateful encounter with Alita, where she still has unfinished business. She still has to hunt down Nova. She still has to make sure her father figure, Ito, has actually recovered from his near death, and so on. Also, there is Salem itself that you have to deal with at some point. And we are going to get another new viewpoint character, but this is more, this part of the story is more from Alita's perspective. But our new character, to kind of help us stay in touch with the general state of things, we get a new character to, kind of work some of these details out, and that's Lou Collins. She's Alita's new handler, basically. They call them operators, but the Toon series, there's eventually going to be a lot of cyborgs in it, and obviously you can't have the chief of the department being the operator for all of those cyborgs. He's really got better things to do anyway. So Lou is brought in to do this. She's a little bit of a spazzy character. She's certainly a lot less dour than Chief Bigot is. She has a very bright and positive personality. A bit of a contrast to Alita, at least as she's been in the last couple of volumes. Of course, Alita does have her bright and cheerful side, but she doesn't get a whole lot of chance to show it off when she's dealing with Salem. Lou is going to change a lot of that. She's a very important character for a lot of reasons, not just because she gives us a window into who Alita is and where her mindset is, but because she represents the good part of Salem. And there is a good part to Salem. It does represent a major antagonistic force, but honestly, most of the things that Alita has encountered have been antagonistic forces. Motorball, Scrap Iron City, the factories, Salem, they are all antagonists to Alita because she lives in a world that is very harsh and difficult to get by in. And in spite of how negative most of Alita's experiences with those large-scale, broad-scale institutions have been, she has found good and loving people in each of those places. Lou is that good, positive thread that she gets from Zalem. One of them, because technically, of course, Ito is also from Zalem, even though Alita didn't meet him there. So, the first chapter in this volume is kind of a recap chapter to bring us back up to speed. We get introduced to Lou. Lou is introduced to Alita. We get a sense of where she is. She's kind of meditating on the sunrise when she first meets Lou, which is a very forward-looking thing. That's very important. Lou is a very forward-looking character. She is something of a fortune teller. At least she believes in the zodiac and its ability to, kind of astrologically dictate things about your personality. And we'll see some more of that theme come up in a minute. But for now, just keep that thread in mind. Alita, however, is looking to her past, and that is an interesting contrast. And we get this really great double-page spread of Alita looking back on all the people she's met and the experiences she's had, and she says, I think all of this happened for a purpose, and my life is going somewhere. So again, we see that Alita is growing and maturing. She has been very nihilistic. She has been very depressed. She has been ready to end it all, or at least end as many people as she can before she's done. She's not in that place anymore. She's in a much healthier, happier place. Of course, Figure played a big part of that, but also I think she's just maturing, and her time in the wilderness has helped her to kind of shed some of her hang-ups, some of her anger, and the regrets she's had have kind of died down now. She has a handle on them, more so than even in the last volume of the story. And that's good, because Alita is about to have her biggest challenge. She fights some ninjas, cyborg ninjas that have a bunch of neat tricks. They're not really that important. The fight only takes up a couple of pages, but we do see that they were sent by Nova, and he has installed this weird, I have no idea how the physics of that work, but one of them apparently had a CRT TV monitor in his stomach, and he spits it out, and Nova takes the opportunity to address Alita. And we get our first piece of solid context for when all of this is taking place. Nova says it's been 10 years, 6 months, and 16 days since they last met. So you have an idea of about how much time has passed between their previous meeting and this one. And that's important for some things that come up later. We then smash cut to a fight between Den and the current reigning champion in Scrap Iron City. This is the champion here, of course. Den, who we see kind of in silhouette here, has a very imposing helmet. Den is this massive samurai kind of guy. We've seen him in the past as a centaur. That is actually a module that he can join with or decouple from. He is not in that form all the time. And there's an interesting fight between Den of Barjack and this champion that proves that Den is a very patient fighter. He is willing to take a little damage to his chassis in order to win a fight, and he's very decisive when he chooses to strike. All of these are important things to know about Den going forward. The next chapter, we get some interplay between Alita and Lou. Not quite as much as in the first chapter, but we see they are really building a rapport. Alita is a lot more relaxed with Lou than she ever was with Chief Bigot, or with anyone else you've really seen her around pretty much since the early days with Doc Ito, and also a little bit in the interlude between her Motorball days and the coming of Zappin. So really, Lou has found something pretty special. She's wormed her way into Alita's inner circle very quickly, and she has a level of emotional intimacy with her that we've only really seen from Alita sharing with Ito and with Figure. So obviously Lou is going to be an important character going forward. That's a good bit of character development. Then we have a really kind of comical sequence here with a group of inept and bumbling bandits. I mean, they're not totally inept. Clearly, they succeed in hijacking this caravan, but we then meet Kyomi, the daughter of the barkeep at Kansas, and she is along for the ride with this caravan. And we can see that she's grown up. She's probably about 12 now, and she's not an adult, but we learn that she's had a lot of circumstances that have kind of pushed her to grow up fast, unfortunately. Her father has lost his bar, and he's become something of an abusive drunk. And while we know that Shimura is doing very well, still working in the scrapyard for the volunteering service, she's also got 8 kids. So it's not like Kyomi can really work her way into that family. So things have not gone well for Kyomi, and Alita feels a little responsible for this, and they join up together. And this caravan is on its way to meet a man named Khaos. Khaos, yes, really, with a KH even. Khaos is a radio broadcaster. He has this little traveling caravan. He broadcasts music. And this is a point of connection between him and Alita, because remember, we saw her performing music in the interlude period and again when she met Figure. So this is something that Alita can understand. She understands why this is important to people in general and why Kyomi in particular at a low point is chasing a music performer. So she says, okay, we'll go with you. We'll catch up with Khaos. And even though Lou isn't entirely on board with this idea at first, it turns out that one of Khaos's sponsors who helps him stay safe and keeps him in gear is Den of Barjack. So happiness all around if you can catch up to this guy. And so the caravan toddles on its way. They're trying to meet with Khaos, but they realize they've come across Barjack territory and they turn around. Because while Barjack and Khaos are on good terms, not everyone who works with Khaos gets the same protection. And the way they realize they've come across Barjack turf is pretty grim. I'm not sure I can actually show it to you on YouTube. But they do find a number of bodies impaled in, Transylvanian fashion. So that's not great. And that's important, too. Like, this is not just gratuitous violence and gore for the sake of it, although there's plenty of that in this series as well. Hold on to that as a thread. We'll come back to it. The caravan hits a sinkhole, and Kyomi and Alita are lost. This is a bit of a contrivance, I think. As is, for that matter, Alita coming across this caravan in the first place. There are actually a couple of major contrivances in this book. They don't necessarily decide things for characters, however. Yes, it's neat that Kyomi and Alita stumble across each other, but it's ultimately Alita who makes the affirmative choice to travel with Kyomi for her own reasons. And by the same token, this sinkhole does kind of deposit the two of them underground, where they're found by mole men that work for Khaos. Again, this sets up the meeting between these two and Khaos in kind of an unbelievable fashion, but not entirely. We knew Khaos was in the area. It's not clear how the caravan owner tracked Khaos through the desert, but we knew he was here somewhere, so maybe it's not entirely surprising that they would be found by him rather than by the caravan owner or Lou, and they wind up, getting found by Khaos. It feels a little bit convenient, but not so convenient as to break immersion. There are coincidences like this from time to time. You just kind of have to, say, that works. Again, this doesn't decide anything for the characters. It just gives them an opportunity to get to know Khaos. And he's a very interesting character, our radio man. He is indeed a radio man. We learn that Khaos is kind of a sickly man with a unique constitution. I'll see if I can find a good whole body shot of Khaos. When I say he's a radio man, he says he can speak in radio waves, but he can't really see very well except in the infrared spectrum. And here's a good shot of what he looks like. He's got a weak constitution. He walks with that cane much like a blind man would. He cannot speak. He transmits radio waves, so people have to wear these headsets. In Alita's case, he transmits directly to her comlink. But most importantly, Khaos is psychometric, which means he can read the memories of people from the objects they've owned. And this is key to his power. All of the music that he plays on the radio is stuff he has learned from the instruments of musicians that he's discovered in his excavations. This is why he has the mole men working for him. And it's a very interesting concept. He's very oriented towards the past, a strong contrast to Lou, and very much in tune with where Alita is in this section of the story. She's reflecting on her past and growing from it now. And that makes these two characters very interesting because Khaos is so focused on the past that he cannot grow anymore. The part of him that is oriented towards the future is, well, more on that in a second. Now, there is an actual plot hole in here, and I'm sure there are other ones, but this is the only one that's ever really jumped out of the story at me and said, made me say, that makes zero sense. Again, Khaos's ability is to read the memories and skills of people from the objects they've owned. Alita comes to him damaged because she had to overtax her lungs, basically, to break oxygen down out of water during her and Kiyomi's trip through the cave system. And in order to fix this, we're told that Khaos reads the memories and skills of Daisuke Ito from Alita's body, which makes no sense because Alita is wearing a tuned chassis. She's not wearing the Berserker body. She's not wearing the civilian body she wore during the Zappen arc because that was completely destroyed. And those are the only two bodies we know of that still exist. Well, I guess the Berserker body doesn't exist. In fact, none of those bodies exist anymore. So there should be no memories from Ito for Khaos to read. This is an actual plot hole, and I don't really have a good explanation for it. The Toon chassis is not connected to Ito in any way. It's straight Typharan technology. We're not sure how Alita got it, but we're definitely sure that Ito never maintained it. So there shouldn't be any of his memories to help repair Alita. It's possible that he actually reads Alita's memories of Ito, and this leads to the very powerful emotional connection that Khaos develops with Alita right off the bat, because he does. He essentially falls in love with Alita after using his psychometry on her. However, Alita is not actually a cyber surgeon. She doesn't have any of Ito's cyber surgeon skills to share with Khaos. So I have no way to explain how he actually did this. And I think this is just a plot hole that Kishiro never got around to closing. I don't know if no one picked it up at the time or if they just hoped no one would pick up on it. Either way, this is a weakness in the story that is kind of bad. There's just no way to explain how Khaos does this or why he supposedly vicariously absorbs Ito's emotional attachment to Alita, which is a big part of this story, because it leads to a break between Khaos and Alita that is pretty impactful for the coming character development. We get a few other interesting tidbits here. Khaos has made a wedding dress for he always intended to give to the woman he loved. He gives it to Alita. And this is something Khaos does, I guess, to kind of help him cement skills as he learns them. And so he made this dress, but he had never given it to anyone. His assistant, Jasmine, clearly wanted to receive this, and she's kind of miffed when Alita gets it instead. Things kind of there's a falling out between Khaos, Jasmine, and Kiyomi. And at the same time, they are on their way to meet Destinova, who is Khaos's father. Biologically speaking, he was obviously not a very good nurturing presence in Khaos' life. And then on top of that fallout, Den appears. And this time, he's in his full Centaur form. And Den has come for the agent of Zalem, and there's a big fight. One of the things that happens here that is very interesting is both Khaos and Den refer to Alita by the name Yoko, which is her actual birth name that she was given on Mars. I believe we learned that during the Motorball arc. I don't remember exactly when she recalls that that's her original name, but she's never really used it, and I think Ito is the only one who really knew it. We know how Khaos picked it up. The fact that Den uses it as well is a hint to who he is. So after the fight scene, a couple of interesting things happen. First, after beating up Den with a combination of her own fighting skills, which are not quite adequate to the situation, and the augmentation of firepower from Lu, who rides in as the cavalry and supplies Alita with some Typharan weaponry, she is able to beat Den down to the point where he's basically just the head and torso of his body. But Den warns that he will always come back, for he is the anger of the surface towards Typharis. And the actual quote from him is that all the desolation and ruin on the surface, all the hatred and sadness, it was all because of Zalem. Never forget, the day of retribution is coming, thieves of the sky. That pretty much summarizes Den's philosophy, but we've also seen that Den is personally responsible for some of the devastation and ruin on the surface. We've seen him murder people, we've seen him trample other humans underfoot, we've seen him impale people on giant weapons. Den is not really being honest with himself here, but that's not surprising. He is, however, charismatic enough and persuasive enough to convince Kiyomi to change sides. We know Kiyomi has had a very bad time of it. Her father has suffered. He's pushed some of that suffering off on her. And of course, she's seen plenty of people in Scrap Iron City suffering as well. And she says, I'm joining Barjack because I want to bring some of that pain back to the city in the sky. She's entranced by this, and she changes sides, which is enough to buy both her and Den a brief reprieve from Alita. So Alita leaves them there and says, okay, next time we cross paths, I won't hesitate to shoot. So Kiyomi is on notice. And this is an interesting moment because while Alita can see the hypocrisy of Den's proclamation, his hatred of Typharis, she herself has felt that hatred. And she herself knows that she is also the cause of some of the suffering on the surface. She can't push it all off on Typharis or Zalem. And she needs to fix the parts that she has caused. That's why she's spending all this time hunting for Nova, why she's so intent on making sure that Ito is okay, because she knows she bears some responsibility for that. She has to sort these things long before she can worry about Zalem. Den is not doing that, but Kiyomi has to figure that out on her own. And since Den is not going to give her any help getting to Nova, and in fact Khaos knows the way, Alita is okay leaving this as it is. She goes back, she finds Khaos, and it turns out that while she's been gone, Khaos and Jasmine have continued on their way to Nova's lair, and they've encountered more of the ninja cyborgs that Nova sent after them, and these cyborgs have killed Jasmine. In retaliation, Khaos has recreated the fighting techniques of an ancient samurai from his katana. This is an actual historical figure from Japanese history named Yukisai Tachibana. And apparently Khaos has found his katana and learned to fence with it. And then Khaos changes. He becomes Den. And we get the final reveal of this act of the story, that Den is an alternate personality. And he uses this transmitter that Nova has installed in Khaos's body to transmit his personality to the giant cyber body that he uses to fight. So Alita, it turns out, cannot kill Den without also killing Khaos. She doesn't want to do that for a number of reasons. She owes Khaos. And also, I mean, Khaos is a net good because he provides a lot to people. He can not only recover lost skills, but he gives them hope and courage to face the future. That's harder for him now that Jasmine is dead, because again, Khaos is primarily pointed towards the past. Jasmine was a fortune teller. She read tarot, and her fortunes told that way were generally accurate. So she provided him with a vision of the future. Now that he's missing that, he's a little lost. He is, as you might say, out of balance. An idea to hold on to for later, although not later in this particular volume. So there's a lot of reasons why Alita doesn't want to kill Khaos in order to get rid of Den. But they do have to confront each other. There is a fight here, and it ends with a pretty fancy showdown. The area gets flooded because a dam breaks. There's a big fight. Alita wins, and the volume ends with her dragging Khaos's soaking body out of the water, and Alita being triumphant. That's not really a cap on any arc that she's going through, because this is just a part of the final arc. Unlike previous volumes, which were mostly self-contained, give or take the Motorball arc, Alita is on the sprint to the finish line now, so each of these installments is going to feed into the other until we reach the end of Volume 9. This is a really interesting reiteration of Alita's character, the base themes, and we get some new ways of looking at this concept of balance. Past and future are contrasted as elements needing balance in this particular volume, and we get a look at the ultimate outcome of who Alita would have become if she hadn't met Figure, because that's basically what Den is. Unlike Khaos, Den was not anchored to this world by Jasmine or by his work as a radio host. Den instead fell completely to his impulse, his desire for revenge, his desire to destroy Typharis. And that is an all-consuming desire that he pursues with all of the disciplines and skills that his other self, that Khaos, has learned. Den is not psychometric, but anything Khaos learns from psychometry, Den also learns. So he's an interesting kind of antagonist, a very potent villain for the story. But he is really a villain for the story. We're not going to see him confronting Alita again, actually, which is too bad. Their two fights in here are really quite gripping. But he has to go and face Typharis. Alita has to go and face Nova. We'll talk about that more the next time we come back to the series. Until then, let me know what you think down in the comments below. There's a like button and a subscribe button down there. You can use those as you see fit, and I'll talk to you later.